Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to another episode of the Raw Prospect Podcast. This is episode 174, and today we're closing out the majors, the four majors every year with our 2023 Open Championship Snake Draft. And today is a very special episode because we will be going for the podcast Grand Slam, so to speak. I've chosen two winners correct in the Masters and the PGA, and Michael chose the correct US Open winner. So as a podcast, we're going for the Grand Slam. We're going to see if we can do it. But before that, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave comments down below with comments, concerns, ideas, anything you may think of, or just leave something for the algorithm because fan engagement helps push these podcasts out to more sports fans just like you. Now, joining me from Austin, Texas, the Stat King himself, Michael Wein. What's up?
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to episode 174 of the Raw Prospect Podcast. As Imy mentioned, make sure you like and subscribe. Check out our Patreon, where we will be eventually posting more content. And keep updated for the rest of the great content that we have for you throughout the month of July, going into August. As we near closer to football season, keep an eye out for our annual, I guess this would be our second annual quarterback bracket episodes coming up later this week, going into next week and into August. And go check out our last episode if you have not already, which was our NFL under 25 and under, player draft that we did just over a week ago, I believe. We are going for the Grand Slam. That is quite impressive, as this is only like our really second year covering golf, covering the majors in full. We've gotten, there have been some good picks, but we've also had to have had a little luck. And this major in particular is going to be interesting because I think it's a little more unpredictable as to how the course is going to play, how it's going to set up. The last time they played a major championship here at Hoylake was back in 2014 when Rory McIlroy won, but I believe a couple of the holes have changed since then. Number 17 has changed from, I believe, a par 4 to a par 3. And then number 10 has changed from a par 5 to a par 4. And some other things throughout the golf course have changed. But we're going to do what we did last episode. I get first pick since I picked the winner of the last major, the US Open at LACC. And then we're going to do a snake draft. And at the end, once we've gone through all 5 tiers, we're each going to get a power play pick, meaning we can pick any player that has not already been selected in any of the 5 tiers at the very end, which is not really included in the snake draft. That will just be after the snake draft has finished. So it'll be 6 players in total. We will post our teams on Twitter before this championship gets kicked off early Thursday morning, and go from there like we always have done. And then keep an eye out before we get started. Keep an eye out for like a golf season wrap-up podcast coming up like early August-ish, where we're going to probably be doing some sort of golfer tier list. Just putting that out there. We haven't figured out the details yet, but keep an eye out for that if you enjoy our golf content. So, with all that being said, this is actually my first podcast from Houston, Texas, where I've moved for my job, which starts on Monday. So, hopefully the internet doesn't screw with me today. It's been good so far, so hopefully we have no issues with that. All right. So with the first pick, why don't we pull up the tiers?
Yep.
Look, there are a lot of good options in tier 1, and as we loop around back to the power play, we're probably each going to get 2 players from either tier 1 or tier 2. We're going to get another player for one of these tiers, but I I have my pick from the litter here. I'm down to 3 in my mind. Rory obviously is coming off a big win at the Scottish Open, where he didn't putt well on Friday or Saturday. Actually, lost 3.5 strokes game putting to the field on Friday and Saturday, but ended up putting really well on Sunday and closing out down the stretch, which I really liked. I think he's in the right mindset. One of the questions that we have down there is, can Rory end the drought? I won't be surprised if he does. He's one of the guys that's going through my mind right now. Obviously, Scotty Scheffler is putting together a historic run of golf that we really haven't seen since Prime Tiger, if you really boil it down to the numbers. He's got, I believe, I think it's 7 straight top 5 finishes, I think. 18. The number of consecutive top 12 finishes he has on tour. That's the longest streak in more than 40 years. And he has 7 consecutive top 5 finishes, which is the longest since Tiger in 2006. So he's playing really good golf despite being, I would say, below average putter the past couple of tournaments and beyond. And then Cameron Smith, last year's champion, was the last guy I was eyeing. It's a tough choice, but for me, I'm going to go with Cameron Smith. Look, only 9 golfers in the 150-year history of the Open Championship have gone on to repeat, go back to back. Cam Smith can become the 10th golfer to do that, to retain the Champion Golfer of the Year title. Look, he's playing really well. Recent form is something that you look at. Historically, when you look at players that have had Open Championship success, 8 straight top 12 finishes, playing really good golf, top 10 results at the PGA Championship and the U.S. Open. So he's played well at majors this year. He has one of the better short games on tour. I think scrambling around the greens is going to be important this week. Great ball striker. He just won recently at a Live Golf Tour event in London. I don't necessarily think, whether he repeats or not, I think he's going to be a top 10, top 20 guy. Just an all-around, well-suited game for this type of event, long off the tee, etc., etc. I'm going to go Cameron Smith, the number 7 ranked player in the world and the defending champion from last year's Open Championship at, was it St. Andrews?
Yep, St. Andrews.
Okay.
Yeah, great pick. I like that you mentioned with the Open the high amount of variance year to year in terms of links golf and all of these venues that they've played the Open at. You can see guys winning at 20 under or as far down as 5 under, depending on the conditions. And that's with, any of these courses, St. Andrews, Royal Liverpool, you name it. Carnoustie. Really, it just comes down to a lot of it is a little bit of luck in terms of your draw, in terms of your tee time, because a lot of times you see the morning tee times having a little bit of more tame conditions. Players can take advantage of that. And getting the right draw in terms of that means a lot. But one thing I will say is my pick is going to surprise some people. I'm looking past a couple of the top names, Scotty Scheffler, John Rahm, Brooks Koepka in particular, Victor Hovland, a guy I picked last tournament at the U.S. Open. I'm going to take Tommy Fleetwood. This is a guy who has been in top tier form the past month, and he hasn't won on the PGA Tour, but he's gotten it done 6 times on the DP World Tour, which tells me there's something about golf in Europe that suits his game a little bit better. I think it's particularly with the putter. We saw last week, dropped a 63 on Saturday at the Scottish Open. Really impressive in terms of just when he's on with his irons, he's able to take advantage by just having streaky putter days. And I think if he can get off to a good start in this tournament, get out to, first, second, third place in the first couple of rounds, he'll be right there in the mix come Sunday.
I like that pick. 3 top 5 finishes in major championships in the past 2 years. And while he hasn't won on the PGA Tour, as you mentioned, he's been successful elsewhere. And he was actually one of the guys I was looking at as a potential power play pick down the road at the end, if he was available at the very end. But I like that you took him. It may be a surprise to some people, but it wasn't really as much of a surprise to me, as he was a guy that I've heard a lot about, watched a lot, and know that he's in good form. You have the next pick and the first pick of the bunch from tier 2. So why not you go ahead and make your pick? I do love your Tommy Fleetwood pick, though.
Thanks. For tier 2, I'm going to go with Ricky Fowler. I think there's something to be said about being in a good spot life-wise. I think with, just gotten married, is a father now as well. I think he's in a great place mentally. I think that lends itself to being more calm and more at ease in pressure situations. We saw that a little bit at the tournament he won a few weeks ago. I believe it was the Quicken Loans Open. He was down a little bit coming into that final hole, had to make birdie, was able to get the birdie, get it done, and then went into the playoff, had that amazing clutch shot coming down the 18th out of the rough. I mean, showing that he can finish off tournaments and be clutch. That's something that has been questioned in the past at times with Ricky Fowler. Obviously, he had that amazing, Players Championship, but outside of that, he had some problems closing on the weekend. And I think where he's at mentally, I think he's at a great spot. And I really loved a quote he had after he won that tournament. He said, they asked him what it meant to him, and he said, it feels great to win, but there's more to life than just winning. And it meant more to him to have his family there than it was to just win the tournament. So I think he has a good perspective on things right now, and I think he'll come into this in the right mindset.
Yeah, and you talk about recent form. He's in about as good a form as you can find on tour right now. Finished top 5 at the U.S. Open. He shot a 60 at the Travelers Championship, and he won the Rocket Mortgage Classic, as you talked about, for his first victory in 4 years. And look, when you look at the history books, funny how things work out this way. When Rory won at the same venue in 2014, 9 years ago, he was paired with Ricky in the final pairing that Sunday. And look, I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I would not be surprised if we get the same final pairing 9 years later on Sunday with the way those two guys are playing. Not saying it's going to happen, but love Ricky Fowler. He was obviously my favorite player in tier 2. I like where he's at mentally. I like where his game is at. He's been on fire with the putter recently. And so I love that pick. Okay, so now I get my pick from tier 2 and tier 3. Can you scroll up a little bit so I can see fully tier 2?
Sorry.
You're all good.
There we go.
Okay, so Morikawa's sort of a quiet player who won this same major in 2021, has had success here before, and that plays a major role as I believe it's 8 of the past 10 Open champions have finished in the top 10 at the Open Championship prior to the year that they've won the Open Championship. But I'm really eyeing three guys in particular, all at the 35-1 slot. Dustin Johnson is a guy that I really like. Jordan Spieth, it seems like it's either a miscut or a top 5 finish recently for him, and it's hard to know what Jordan Spieth you might get week to week, but he has about as strong a history as anybody does of success at the Open Championship in particular and at links style golf. So he was obviously a guy I'm looking at. And then Matt Fitzpatrick is a guy who just is pretty consistent and plays really good golf week to week. This might surprise some people as I'm going sort of the live route today, but I'm going to go Dustin Johnson. The more I look at it, look, he struggled early at the Masters and the PGA, struggled in the first 2 majors of the year, but he did have a top 10 finish at the U.S. Open, and he's been in good form since then, which is important as we head into this Open Championship. 5th in strokes gained tee to green at LACC at the U.S. Open. Hit the ball really well. He's been in the mix at recent Live Tour events and had top 10 finishes there. Look, without being able to watch Live Golf, it's really hard to know the full state of his game, and they don't really have strokes gained stats on the Live Tour. But he has a pretty strong history at the Open Championship. He's finished inside the top 10 4 times in this event since 2011. He was the 36-hole leader at St. Andrews in 2015. I like him. I was between really him and Jordan Spieth, but I went with Dustin Johnson. I think he has the game to do it. He's just got to do it. So I'm going to go Dustin Johnson, and then scroll down to tier 3.
Yep.
Boy, this is where it gets a little tougher. I think I'm gonna. I tried the Cam Young thing. I think it was last time or the time before. Not sure how that's working out right now. Don't really know the full state of his game. Justin Rose has been in the mix in majors this year. He's playing pretty well. Number 32 in the world, still playing well at his age. Just continues to be really consistent. Minwoo Lee is a really talented guy that I look at the 55-1 spot. And Sam Burns has, the talent to get it done. DeChambeau, but I don't want to go all 3 live golfers. I'm going to take a flyer on Minwoo Lee. Look, the strokes gain stats are there when you look at past champions from this particular tournament. He's got the all-around game, good short game, really skilled player, good ball striking. No real method to the madness here, but I think he can put up a solid performance. I look at him as a guy who's probably going to make the cut, stick around, pretty solid game. He's actually one of the best players on tour at what they call double bogey avoidance. He doesn't make a whole lot of doubles, doesn't take himself out of a whole lot of tournaments, doesn't have those blow-up holes. I don't know if it'll work out, but I'm going to take a flyer on Minwoo Lee at 55-1 as my tier 3 pick.
Okay. I think that's a great pick. Has had multiple good showings in majors, and he has one of my favorite swings on tour just from a tempo standpoint. He's very smooth and consistent. So solid pick there. Now for my pick in tier 3, I have 3 players in mind here. I have Sam Burns, just because of his recent good form. Last week had a top 20 finish at the Scottish Open. Had a rough Sunday as well, so would have been a little bit of a higher finish if he had played a little bit better on Sunday. Bryson DeChambeau, just because of the advantage that taking irons off the tee and hitting them 300 plus yards can give you. having that advantage really lends itself to good golf at the Open Championship just because you can control your ball flight so well and you can just have your ball fly through the wind super low and just roll forever. So Bryson DeChambeau is someone I'm considering. And then Justin Thomas um, hasn't had a good year overall and has been really inconsistent with the putter, but last week showed signs of life at the Scottish Open. And I think just from a shot creation standpoint, there's not a whole lot of guys on tour who I would rank above Justin Thomas in terms of shot shaping and creativity and all of those types of things. But I think for this pick, I'm going to go with Sam Burns.
I
I
like it.
think the other two guys have a little bit more question marks around them. And I think Sam Burns is a little bit more consistent with the putter than those other two guys. So that's who I'm going to go with.
I like that pick. He's been in good form recently. So now I believe, do you get another pick or am I up?
I think it goes back to me for tier
Okay.
4.
Okay.
Um, some pretty high level talent still in tier 4 here. Jason Day has been solid this year. I wouldn't pick a lot of these guys in terms of picking someone to win, but I think there's a lot of value here in terms of finding a player that can uh, be in the top 20 of the tournament and add a good number to our overall total. And if you're new here, it's really important to get these lower tier picks correctly because we do combine the total scores here. So it's really important to get these picks right. I think it's pretty tough, but I think I'm going to go with Brian Harman. Had a good showing last week as well. Also had a rough Sunday. Was 9 under going into the final day, I believe 3 or 4 shots back, and really struggled on the final day in those tough conditions. But Brian Harman is someone who I think is on a short list of guys who just are super consistent with the putter. It's incredibly difficult on tour to go week to week to different courses, travel all over the place, and have a consistent baseline of performance with the putter. That seems to be the most fickle club in the bag for a lot of the guys on tour. Everybody has the talent to hit shots with whatever club in the bag, but putter seems to be the great equalizer in terms of the mid-tier player on tour. So Brian Harman, I think from that standpoint is the best option.
Yeah, I like that pick. He was one of the couple under the radar guys from tier 4 that I was looking at 100 to 1. That's great value if you're actually betting on it. You look at what Brian Harman has done recently and at this particular event, 2 important boxes you want to check in terms of criteria when you look at historical success at the Open Championship. Good recent form and has a top 10 finish at the Open Championship under his belt. Not saying Brian Harman is going to be a guy that's going to win, but of the guys that have success, they've had success before at the Open Championship. He finished 19th and 6th in his last 2 Open Championship starts. Tied 26 in his debut back in 2014, the last time the tournament was at this particular venue, although it has changed a little bit. Finished inside the top 12 in his last 3 starts, so great recent form. And he has the game. As you mentioned, the putter's a great equalizer. I really like how you put that. So I like Brian Harman. He was one of the guys I was looking at. I'm going to go with another under the radar guy, I guess you could say, from tier 4. Russell Henley. I think he's going under the radar. Look, his Open Championship record is not great, and that's what I worry about a little bit. His best finish is top 20 at St. Andrews in 2015. But he has been in contention before, just fallen out of it. He's played well in majors this season. 4th at the Masters, 14th at the U.S. Open, and he's ranked in the top 5 in strokes gained approach in 3 of his past 4 starts. Iron play is so important in these big tournaments. He's already won an event down in Mexico this season, and he's won multiple tournaments in windy, tight conditions, which is what you might see some at this Open Championship, which I do like. He won at the Honda Classic, an event where there is plenty of statistical correlation to Open champions. Again, not saying that Russell Henley is going to win this week, but I do like some of the statistical trends that he has going. Statistically, he's the most accurate driver on the PGA Tour, and I think that's going to benefit him this week. So I just like Russell Henley as sort of a sleeper guy who could definitely see finish top 20, maybe in the top 10 if he has a really good week. That's going to be my tier 4 pick. And then am I up again with tier 5?
Yep, you go again for tier 5.
This is where it gets to like there's no real method to the madness. I've picked this guy before, but I just really like his game. I'm really high on his game. He's had a little bit of success in the majors, hasn't really won yet or broken through on the PGA Tour, but he's young. He has the talent in the all-around game to do it, I believe, and have a really good week, and that's going to be Sahith Theegala at 150 to 1. No real method to the madness there. Just really like his game. Ranked 35th in the world. Get him in tier 5. Good all around. Good off the tee. I think he could have a pretty good week. We'll see, though.
Okay, yeah. Solid pick there. A lot of you may know him from the Netflix series, Full Swing,
Yep.
that came out earlier this year. Solid pick there. I can't say much else really. I'm gonna go with a little bit of wild card as well. A PGA Tour rookie from this year has had multiple top 10 finishes, a top 5 finish this past week. Nikolai Hogard. Um, to be honest, he's most known for a few years ago. His brother, actually at the Dell Match Play here in Austin, Texas, had beat Tiger Woods in the quarterfinals, and I know that both of those guys are unbelievable in terms of ball striking, and he seems to have found good form with the putter as of late, and I think that's what I'm going to rely on here.
Okay, I like that. Again, the putter is so important at Open Championships and scrambling around the greens as well, historically. So now let's recap our teams. I have Cameron Smith in tier 1, Dustin Johnson in tier 2, Minwoo Lee from tier 3, Russell Henley from tier 4, and Sahith Theegala from tier 5. As for Emmy, he has Tommy Fleetwood, who I really like, Ricky Fowler, who I really like, Sam Burns from tier 3, Brian Harmon, as I spoke to, from tier 4, and Nikolai Hogard from tier 5. Okay, so now we come down to our last pick of the year for major champions, and that's going to be our second ever power play pick. As we did it for the U.S. Open, we're now doing it again as we really liked how things turned out at the U.S. Open for the Open Championship. Since I got the first pick of the day, I'll let you have the first power play pick. So you go ahead and make your power play power play selection? And again,
Um,
it can be anybody that hasn't already been selected.
right. Um, for me, it's between two players, Roy McIlroy and Scotty Scheffler. I think it really just comes down to whether the stars align and whether these guys can make enough putts to get it done. We know who they are in terms of ball striking. We know that in terms of those categories, they're the best in the world or among the best in the world week in and week out. So really, to me, it's just personal preference and gut feel. And for this, I'm going to go with Rory McIlroy. Last time around at the U.S. Open, our first ever power play, I went with him, and he ended up being right there at the end. And it looked like for a little while he was going to actually get it done. This time around, I think it just comes down to putting 4 consistent days together with the putter. Um, Everything else, I think, will fall into place. His swing is probably my favorite on tour, and many golf fans' favorite on tour, I would assume. But no matter the case, it just always is going to come down to the putter and just not making any of those big key mistakes.
Yeah, look, for the power play, I was down to the same two players, and I knew you were going to pick one, most likely, and I was going to have the other, and I was fine with that. So I let you have the first selection. And for me, I got to go with Scotty Scheffler. Um, Look, the putter has let him down a little bit the past month or two, but he's still putting together like an all-time great PGA Tour season. You look at what he's doing. Uh, 18, that's the number of consecutive top 12 finishes that Scotty Scheffler has on the PGA Tour. That's just ridiculous. That's the longest streak in more than 40 years. Um, he's the only player to finish inside the top 10 in the year's first 3 majors, and he's done it in all 3. And he's actually finished in the top 10 in 9 out of the last 13 major starts. That's incredible. Since the start of 2020, he's 62 under par in major championships, 27 strokes better than any other golfer in that time period. 27 strokes better than any other golfer in that time period. He's on pace to have the lowest scoring average and the most strokes gained since Tiger Woods in 2009, plus the most strokes gained tee to green since Tiger in 2006. He has finished inside the top 3 in strokes gained tee to green in each major and outside the top 30 in strokes gained putting, but he still managed to finish top 10 in all 3. So what that's telling me is if he has anything close to a really good putting week and he finds the putter just a little bit, he could win this damn thing. It's just, as you mentioned, will the stars align that way? But regardless, I think I can count on Scotty to put up a good performance and maybe finish top 10 once again or whatever he's been doing. I mean, you can go on and on with the numbers. He's just having an incredibly historic PGA Tour season.
Definitely. And the numbers don't lie. One thing I will say, y'all, is if you are in a state that uh, has legalized sports betting, there's a good chance that one of the guys we have drafted will be holding up the trophy on Sunday. So take that for what you will. And I'll say a good value pick is probably um, somewhere in these top 2 or 3 tiers. Anywhere below that, I wouldn't bet on outright winner. I would probably go for top 10 finish, top 5 finish, somewhere in those along those lines.
Yeah, I would agree. Any parting shots? It can be anything related to major championship season, this particular event, what you're looking for, just anything as we wrap up the episode.
Well, One thing I will say is the golf has been incredible this year, just overall. Like even outside of the majors, there's been so many first time winners, breakout young stars. And as a golf fan, that's what you want to see. And then three, we've seen historic stretches of golf from a number of different players. To start the year, we had John Rahm, who through the fall swing of 2022 to the beginning of 2023 was untouchable all the way up until his Masters victory. And then, of course, we had Rory being in the mix of, I believe, three of the four majors, winning multiple times worldwide. And of course, the numbers you've just mentioned from Scotty Scheffler, pretty hard to deny in terms of him being the number one player in the world and just asserting his dominance over every other golfer, just in terms of consistency. It just seems untouchable at the moment.
Yeah, so much great golf this year. There's more to come even after this event, I believe. The amount of saturation of young talent that there is on the PGA Tour right now, it's unbelievable. I mean, you look at the difference between where we were 5 years ago and where we are now. It's just incredible the amount of young stars that have emerged. I think even with the pending Live PGA DP merger that's still being decided upon and has been a big storyline in golf, I think golf is headed in the right direction to a more worldwide product, like TV product, more popular worldwide TV product. And I think with all the young stars, that only helps. And the majors have just been fantastic this year. We've gotten a variety of breakthrough winners like the Wyndham Clarks of the world to, guys who have been favorites to everything in between. So I'm really excited to watch this week. And I'm also really excited for our golf wrap-up episode, whenever that may be. Should be in the next couple of weeks, to wrap up the season and talk about, where things stand. What is the hierarchy of on the PGA Tour right now? And maybe we'll even include some live guys in there as well. So that's going to do it for this episode of the Raw Prospect Podcast. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Leave some feedback on what we can improve on going into the future, as this will be a yearly thing that we do. We caught on to this last year. We've made some changes, but now we're really liking this particular format of talking about the major championships. I think it's going to continue into the future, but we're open to recommendations, and we'll see you guys later this week for more content. Keep an eye out for some exciting stuff. And
Yep.
so I guess, man, I don't know. Do you have an outro?
One thing I'll say real quick is if you have any suggestions for Michael's new podcast setup at his new place, leave them down below. We'd love to hear them, or even suggestions about my setup. My setup's definitely not uh, how I'd want it yet as well. But I'd say just like the chances of us living in the same city for more than a couple months at a time, we are gone. Peace
Peace
out.
out, everyone. Enjoy the golf tournament.